Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Abidemi Shomoye, and I'll be presenting the paper The Impact of Urbanization on CO2 Emissions in BRICS countries. All right, for the sixth International Conference of Contemporary Affairs in Architecture and Urbanism. Let's go straight to the introduction. As we all know, climate change is a very essential issue discussed globally. Right? This is because of climate irregularities such as rising temperatures, a decrease in snow cover, rising sea levels, increasing storms, droughts, loss of species, and increased poverty and displacement. Okay, in addition, climate change can also affect the life expectancy rate. Okay, what are some of the important elements that has caused climate change? They are what we call greenhouse gases. All right, greenhouse gases are mostly responsible for climate change. These greenhouse gases include carbon dioxide emissions, nitrous oxide emissions, methane emissions, and fluorinated gases. Yet the most negatively impacting of this greenhouse gas is called CO2, which is caused mainly by human activities using fossil fuel sources such as oil, gas, coal, and etc. In addition, greenhouse gases can also be um, in addition to these greenhouse gases, other economic variables can also spur CO2, okay, such as GDP, urbanization, financial development, FDI, technological innovation, population, governance, gender, etc. This study examines the impact of urbanization on CO2 in BRICS economies from 1990 to 2021. This makes it about 192 observation. We also use energy intensity instead of using energy use and GDP as control variables. Okay, now let's look at the CO2 emissions in the BRICS economies. Okay, this is the graph. Okay, figure one, which is the graph from 1990 to 2021, shows that India, Brazil, Turkey, China, South Africa, and Russia have the lowest emissions respectively. So starting from India has the lowest, next to Brazil, next to Turkey, next to China, next to South Africa, next to Russia. It is also evident in the figure one that CO2 in each country is becoming flat. Okay, this is because the countries have made commitments to reduce the use of fossil fuels as much as possible and engage in the use of renewable energy consumption. Okay, this shows that BRICS economies are creating environmental policies that reduce CO2. Also, the year 2020 also shows a general decline in CO2 due to COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let's move to what urbanization is. Urbanization can be defined as the process whereby people move from rural areas to urban areas because of diverse opportunities. Okay, these opportunities include better employment opportunities, access to education, healthcare, business opportunities, electricity, and generally better living standards. Although urbanization depicts development, it also has its own challenges, such as population in urban areas, neglect of rural area development, social inequality, environmental issues. All right. So let's examine the concept of urbanization in the BRICS steel economies. And this is figure two. In figure two, from 1990 to 2021, shows that urban population is rising in Brazil, India, China, South Africa, and Turkey. Okay, it's true that people want to go to the urban areas because of the available amenities in those areas. Okay, however, in Russia, it is observed that from 1990 to 2008, there was a decline in urbanization. And from 2009 to 2019, urbanization picked up again and began to decline again in 2020. This might continue to decline due to Russia and Ukraine war. What are some of the empirical contributions of this study? Okay, this study contributes to the existing literature by adding Turkey to the BRICS economy. So most of the studies you see, they just focus on BRICS. Okay, we decided to add Turkey to make it a panel data. Secondly, this research uses energy intensity to proxy for energy use in BRICS steel economy. So energy intensity tends to measure how efficient energy is instead of using the normal energy use data. Other studies have employed energy use data. Thirdly, this research employed pooled OLS, fixed effect, and random effects method. Pooled OLS assumes no individual or time-specific heterogeneity and observations. And observations can be combined to estimate the average relationship between the dependent and independent variables. Fixed and random effect controls for unobserved heterogeneity. This method is suitable for panel data analysis. So let's go to the section 2, which is the literature review. Okay, from the literature review section, we can find mixed results in the three variables, independent variables we have used. Okay, we have found that urbanization can either increase or decrease CO2 emissions. It means that urbanization can have a positive impact on CO2 emissions or can have a negative relationship with CO2 emissions. We've also found that energy use mostly increases CO2 emissions, especially if it is fossil fuel driven. We've also found that energy intensity mostly increases CO2 emissions if the economies we are studying are still have elements of fossil fuels within their society. Okay, in which Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, China, and Turkey, they still have considerable amount of fossils that drives economic activities. Okay, let's look at the data and model specification. Okay, I've already mentioned we used one dependent variable and three independent variables. Dependent variable is CO2 emission, and the three independent variables are urbanization, proxied by urban population, energy intensity, and GDP, which is proxied by real GDP per capita. Okay. All right, let's move on. All right, let's look at the model specification. So based on those variables that have been mentioned, and the model is according to, is adopted from Ali et al. 2019. Okay, so like I mentioned, CO2 is the dependent variable, urbanization, energy intensity, and GDP are the independent variables. In addition, the log of the variables were taken into consideration to control for outliers and instability in the model. Okay, so this is what the log linear model, after the log has been taken, this is what the model looks like. So let's take a look at the analysis and discussion. Okay, from this is the descriptive statistics. From the descriptive statistics, okay, it is ascertained that urbanization has the highest mean, median, maximum, and minimum values, while CO2 emissions has the lowest mean, median, maximum, and minimum values. Okay, LCO2 and LGDP are negatively skewed, while urbanization and energy intensity are positively skewed. LCO2 urbanization and energy intensity are plasticotic because they are less than 3, while LGDP is leptocotic because it is more than 3. There are 192 observations, which is sufficient for a panel data analysis. Now, before the unit truth is being done, we have to test for cross-section dependency. Okay, when we test for the cross-section dependency, we found that there's cross-section dependency in the model, in our variables. And so we will have to use the second generation unit truth test instead of using the first generation unit truth test. Okay, this shows that there's cross-sectional dependency, and we can see in Roche, Pesseran, and Pesseran CD. The second generational unit truth test showed that by an NG 2004 shows that there's no cross dependency, and also CIPL tests show that LCO2, energy intensity, and LGDP are stationary at levels. CIDF test shows that LCO2, urbanization, energy intensity, and LGDP are stationary at levels. Now let's take a look at the pooled OLS. From the pooled OLS, we can see that urbanization has a negative relationship with CO2 emissions. Energy intensity has a positive relationship with CO2 emissions, while LGDP has a positive relationship with CO2 emissions. We can see the R squared and adjusted R squared at 99%, which shows that the model is fit. And we can see the F stat probability is also significant. The probability, the Jacqui-Berra, which is to measure if there's normal distribution, shows that our model is normally distributed at 39.8%. Okay, just like I mentioned, for the pooled OLS, a 1% increase in urbanization would decrease LCO2 by 0.19%. A 1% increase in energy intensity would increase LCO2 by 1.10%, and a 1% increase in LGDP would increase LCO2 by 0.61%. Okay, the fixed effects results are also kind of similar. It also shows that urbanization has a negative relationship with CO2 emissions. Energy intensity has a negative relationship with CO2 emissions, positive relationship with CO2 emissions, while LGDP also has a positive relationship with CO2 emissions. And we can see that they are significant at the 1% level. Okay, from the redundancy fixed test likelihood ratio, it shows that our model is significant. It shows that the model is significant. Okay, explained the fixed effect. So from the model, it shows that the fixed effect is the most suitable. But we also carried out the random effect, which also gives us that urbanization has a negative relationship with CO2, energy intensity has a positive relationship with CO2, and LGDP has a positive relationship with CO2. Okay, the discussions. From the discussions, the summary of the discussion shows that because urbanization has a negative relationship with the CO2, it shows that the BRICS economies have been practicing sustainable urbanization policies. It means that they've been carrying out policies that would drive down CO2 emissions. Okay, also, we found that GDP and energy intensity increases CO2 emissions. It means that the BRICS economics have not been able to decouple GDP from CO2 emissions. So they have to come up with policies to find out that as economic growth increases, CO2 emissions will decrease. That is the summary of the discussions. It shows that the BRICS economics have been practicing sustainable urbanizational policies that would drive down CO2 emissions. Like you know, most of the economies have carried out, are working on policies to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. In conclusion, okay, it shows that urbanization drives has a negative relationship with CO2, energy intensity has a positive relationship with CO2, and GDP has a positive relationship with CO2. So this study recommends that BRICS economy should continue to create policies that will foster sustainable transportation, energy efficient buildings, renewable energy integration, green spaces, urban planning, effective waste management and recycling, collaborative governance, and carbon pricing and incentives. And these are my references. Thank you so much.